Tom, I would like a pay rise. It's time to talk about salary caps. Now, when we're talking about my negotiation for the United Pubcast, you do pay me handsomely. But, Tom, there will be no salary cap on the Pubcast. But where there might be a salary cap is at Manchester United. If you believe the Mail Sport report, Ten Hag wants to control the dressing room. Richard Arnold wants to control the dressing room. And the way they do that, they introduce the Ronaldo rule. Tom, before we rip into the story, how are you?
Yeah, very well, very well. Keen to get into this. I think a lot of good football at the moment amongst Manchester United, but in regards to the way we're moving forward in terms of the steps that need to be taken, I think this is a sort of valid discussion whether we believe the story or not. I think that's up for debate, which we'll be having today, but a good change of pace in my opinion.
Absolutely, and we are going to rip into all of this, the story, what the impacts are. How does this impact the negotiations of the likes of Marcus Rashford, who is coming off contract? We're going to rip into all of it. So, Tom, let's start with the story. It was broken by the Daily Mail around 24 hours or so ago. And the story suggests that following the signing of Cristiano Ronaldo, who was on reportedly a wage as high as £500,000 per week, £500,000 per week, Manchester United are deciding to introduce a £200,000 per week salary cap for any player. And that should hopefully achieve one, dressing room success, but also keep the wage structure under control. We've seen recent quotes from Richard Arnold suggesting there's no money available, and that's impacted United's ability in the transfer window. The salary cap's going to solve it all, Tom. Let's start with the story. What was your initial reaction to this news?
I think there's validity in the story. The actual specifics of it, I think, is nonsense. And I hate it. I hate the idea of a salary cap because in a couple of years' time, the way football is going, we're going to have a team of A-League players. If the wage cap is kept at 200, that's not going to work. I think every player in the Premier League in a couple of years, that'll be an average wage. So I hate the idea of it. Casemiro, you're going to tell him not to come in? No, he'll stay in Madrid. You're going to bring Rafael Varane in? No. Do you want to bring Jude Bellingham in? No, he'll go to Real Madrid. So it's going to stunt our growth as a football club. I do like the idea of getting control of the wage structure, and that's what I hope this story is about. But in regards to capping wages, I think it's a ridiculous policy. Yes, it can work in the NRL or the A-League here in these sort of smaller leagues, not in the English Premier League, not for Manchester United. I absolutely hate it, Larry.
You say it would lead to Manchester United signing A-League players. Firstly, I hope you're tongue-in-cheek there. £200,000 a week is a lot of dough. In the essence of it, let's remember, Wayne Rooney at his peak was earning £200,000 per week. I know we're talking 10 years ago.
13 years ago.
But in the grand scheme of things, you're still a multi-millionaire.
Yeah, no play. But when players have an option to go and get $400,000 a week, $500,000 a week elsewhere, which will be the norm in a couple of years' time, if we're saying no, our top player's only going to have 200, Larry, it's not going to work. In theory, I love it, but we don't live in an ideal world. We live in the real world, and it takes no prisoners.
You say that a higher salary is going to be the norm. Well, let me put this to you. We've seen the salaries of players increase because the TV money has increased. We've seen the amount go from 2.7 billion to as high as 3.7 billion, I believe, in the last TV deal that was negotiated between Sky, Amazon, BT, and the Premier League. Surely the TV money is reaching its tipping point.
Since 2002, it reached its tipping point. 2005, it won't go any bigger. 2008 won't go any bigger than this. Football's about to burst. The bubble's going to burst. 2012, 2015, money keeps pouring into the game. It's not going to stop.
What you aren't considering here, Tom, is the world is facing a global recession. There is less money to go around in the everyday Englishman, Australian, and wherever you are in the world consuming your
forget the Englishman, forget the Australian. Who's pumping money into the game now? The Qataris, the Abu Dhabi groups.
It's based on the TV money. You have to remember, it all trickles down. The TV money is based on the ratings. The ratings are the everyday customer who tune in every week. If the everyday customer can't afford to pay the subscription, the TV money isn't there to offer these players the kind of money that they're currently on.
Football is a drug. People will afford it.
You're saying that, and I understand that.
We've been saying this for 20 years.
When a man has to choose whether to feed his family or watch a football game, this becomes a very different conversation.
You would be shocked.
All right. Well, I think you've chosen your hill, and you're absolutely going to die on it. I disagree. I think the TV money is reaching its absolute tipping point. If it is to go up, it's not going to go up by much. And I'd argue it's probably going to stay the same, if not fall away a little bit. particularly in the upcoming 3 years. Like I said, I think there are global economic circumstances here that are going to impact the amount of money that's coming into the game, and that's going to trickle down. But let's bring it back to Manchester United for a moment. I might actually start with other clubs in the Premier League. You say £200,000 will be the norm. Outside of Manchester City, and I'll throw some names at you in a moment, what other club pays players beyond £200,000 a week?
I say the norm. I'm talking elite clubs in terms of going and winning the titles we want to go win. Yes, if you compare it to other clubs in the Premier League, Manchester United, Manchester City are clearly at the top. Okay, and 200 isn't the average, but you know exactly what I mean by that. In terms of you just look at Manchester United, I'm sure you got the stats you might bring up a little bit later in regards to our earners. 200 is pretty average when you consider it. Okay, Ronaldo's sort of leaving. That takes a little bit of the cherry off it in regards to he was a bit of an outlier in regards to the 500K a week. But ultimately, everyone going for a new contract, I assume Scott McTominay, he's on a very low contract at Manchester United, one of our lowest earners. I think he's around 100 grand a week. His next contract, he's going to be, what let's say 150 grand a week. Is that right to have him up there at the top earners of the club? And I'm just thinking, should Jadon Sancho or should Bruno Fernandes or Rafael Varane only be earning 50 grand more than the players at the bottom? And I just think, yes, in an ideal world, I like it. Yes, I like Eric Ten Hag's thinking, I like John Murder's thinking, I love it. We don't live in a real world, Larry. I love all these sort of things, and it's simply not the case. You think PSG are going to go, look, hang on, Man United only spent, look, let's do the same thing. Manchester City going, geez, you know what, they have a fancy little wage structure there. Actually, no, we'll continue to fight for the Premier League title. Real Madrid going, well, hang on, Jude Bellingham on 200 grand a week to fight for fourth at Manchester United. Hang on, we'll give you 450 and come and win a Champions League with us. And I'm just thinking, look, I like the idea of it, but it's not going to work.
Okay, well, let me put it this way. Arsenal currently sit first in the Premier League. Do you think any of their players are on 200,000 a week?
Yeah, were any of the Leicester players, are they still winning Premier League titles? Like these things can happen. In terms of being consistently good, it's the teams who spend the most on their players.
Let me put an argument too. We'll get into the current players, so make sure you get your comments in. We'll talk about the likes of Marcus Rashford, Luke Shaw, Diogo Dalot, who are up for contract negotiations and how this might impact them. But let's rewind to 2018. David De Gea signs his new deal, £375,000 per week. I think that was the tipping point for Manchester United, and I think that's why they find themselves in the financial situation they're in now. Actually, let's rewind a little bit before that. Alexis Sanchez. I think that's where this mess starts. You had Alexis Sanchez come in on a reported £400,000 per week. And then when David De Gea came to negotiate his new deal, well, I just got player of the season. This stud isn't even performing. I want a big contract. So
I think that's where I know the story in regards to a salary cap is nonsense, because Manchester United haven't put the Ronaldo rule. Ronaldo's not the first player to earn over 200K a week, as you rightly mentioned. It's happened far beyond that. So I think the Ronaldo rule is used as a bit of a stirring up sort of ploy from the Daily Mail and whoever's reporting it. So in regards to that, yes, you're completely right. Paul Pogba, Alexis Sanchez, Di Maria, all these players, and Ronaldo himself, and players who deservedly have got contracts over 200K a week. Everything has played a part. Now, to fix that, it's going to be a gradual process. You can't go into Carrington tomorrow morning and tell all the players on over 200 grand a week, Casemiro, you're on 300 grand a week. Look, tomorrow we're implementing a policy. You're going to be back down to 200 grand a week. Yes, it's an enormous amount of money. Like, it's stupid the amount of money some of our players and some of the players around world football are collecting each week. But ultimately, you can't go into a player who's on 300, 350 grand a week and say tomorrow you're going to be earning 200 grand a week. It's just, and now that's probably not going to be the process. It might be by the time your next contract comes around. But if you're coming around for a new contract, Casemiro wins us the Premier League title on 300 grand a week. He wants to extend his contract. Listen, Eric and John Murtaugh, look, 300 grand a week. Look, I think I've done well at Manchester United. I'd like to keep that, or maybe go bump up to 315, 320K a week. And they say, look, hang on. Now, to be honest, we'll give you 200K a week. It's not going to work. In theory, it does. In reality, it won't.
I'm going to list Manchester United's top 10 earners for you, and we're going to work backwards. So this might surprise some of you. This is from Sport Track. In terms of reliability, look, I'm not 100% sure. In saying that, a lot of the figures here are what you've seen reported constantly in terms of the players we're about to mention. So, Tom, you ready? In the top 10, Luke Shaw, £150,000 per week. Christian Eriksen, £150,000 per week. It's important to note with Eriksen, he was signed on a free transfer. So United did save on a transfer fee. I can understand why he has a bigger wage. Harry Maguire, reportedly approximately $190,000 per week. Then we start breaking into what would we call the salary cap now. Marcus Rashford, currently £200,000 per week. Anthony, £200,000 per week. Bruno Fernandes, £250,000 per week. Signed his new deal early in 2022. Anthony Martial, $250,000 per week. Signed in under Solskjaer. Casemiro, reportedly $300,000 per week. Varane, $340,000. The top two earners. Jadon Sancho, £350,000 per week. That doesn't look like value for money there. And finally, David De Gea, $375,000 per week. Tom, this article that we're alluding to on Manchester United starts around David De Gea, and it says that this will ultimately start with him. He's expected to sign a deal where he takes £150,000 per week. Now, obviously, we'll wait and see if that's the case or not. Do you expect David De Gea to sign a $150,000 a week deal? And if he does sign that deal, do you think this story probably has a bit more legs than what you're giving it at the moment?
I think the David De Gea situation is quite unique in regards to the goalkeeping situation and his length of time at the club, him potentially realising the change in modern goalkeeping. And sort of, it's a weird situation. I think we're going to have a different discussion around Bruno Fernandes' next contract or Rashford's next contract than we would David De Gea. Different stages of their career, different positions, different needs in that position for the manager. So I do expect David De Gea to take a pay cut, whether it's 150 grand. I would be surprised, but obviously time will tell, and maybe that might give us a little bit more information, a little bit more guidance into this story. Now, you mentioned those players, Larry. There's I don't know how many were over the 200 grand, but I think the 5 or 6 players, and then you look at just the players around that, 150, 180 grand a week, whatever. It's half our squad, more than half our squad. It's a big chunk. Now, I just think, as I said, I do believe a salary cap is nonsense in regards to black and white line, cutting it dry. No one over 200 grand a week. I don't like that. What I do like in regards to the idea, sort of putting something forward in terms of getting the wage structure under control, is when it comes up time for a contract renewal, it'll only be allowed to go up a certain percentage. A youth player can't be on 10 grand a week and going up to 250 grand a week, or someone on 100 grand a week can't go to 350 grand a week. I like an idea where if you're on 150 grand a week, your next contract can only be up to 170 or less than 200. If you're on 200 grand a week, your next contract can't go over 250,000 sort of thing. That's where I like to think a new structure can be put in place. But I'll come back to the point, I can't go out to Kylian Mbappe when new owners come in from Abu Dhabi. Kylian Mbappe, we want to sign him for £150 million transfer fee and say, look at Kylian, look, we'll run a tight ship here. We want to keep the dressing room happy. You're only going to be paid 200 grand a week. We say, well, hang on. Real Madrid are going to pay me 500 grand. Where's he going to end up? And there is a balance in that. Which players do we want? Do we want the players who come in here for the club or the money? There is a balance in that. But ultimately, what success has told us over the years, it's the best players that win the trophies. And we haven't had those at Manchester United. And if we handcuff ourselves to prevent them from arriving at our doorstep, it's going to be a long 10 years.
Let's look closer to home. Liverpool have a wage structure. Let's call it a salary cap for consistency. And there was a lot of conjecture around Mo Salah whether they wanted to offer him a new deal or not. Eventually, they did offer him that new deal. That new deal was reportedly £200,000 per week. And Liverpool were umming and ahhing whether they were going to offer Mo Salah that sort of pay packet. If Liverpool have managed to win a Premier League title, now granted, one title in the last 30 years, for the best team reportedly in the world, not good enough. Tongue-in-cheek, obviously. But at the end of the day, they did conjecture, but they landed at 200K on Mo Salah, who I would argue, I know you don't highly rate him, but you can't debate his goal record over the last 4 or 5 years is in the elite bracket. So if Liverpool can get away with doing that, and they've still managed to bring in the likes of Gakpo, Thiago, Alisson, Van Dijk, etc., and keep those players in the squad in respect to the latter two, or the latter three if you want to include Mo Salah, is there an argument to say that a little bit of salary cap structure can actually be delivered?
No,
before you answer that question, I want to highlight Manchester City's 2 highest owners. Kevin De Bruyne, £400,000 per week. Erling Haaland, £375,000 per week. And they got Jack Grealish on £300,000 per week. Let's focus on Haaland for a minute. He's 22 years old. £375,000 per week. What does his next deal look like?
And if he's banging in 50 goals, are you going to say, no, we're not going to give him a new contract?
Well, I'll throw that back at you. Manchester City are currently second in the Premier League. They're behind Arsenal, and they're behind Arsenal by, look, it's not a massive lead. I still think they're favourites to win the title. But you could argue that when they signed Erling Haaland, a striker that effective for that kind of pay packet, that was the signing that was meant to get Manchester City the Champions League. Now, they might still get the Champions League with him. But I would argue that, let's think back to Manchester United and when they signed Ruud van Nistelrooy. Sometimes signing the perfect striker or the best striker at the time and offering that striker elite money isn't a guarantee for success. I will tell you Ruud van Nistelrooy was a successful signing for Manchester United, but it didn't show in terms of trophies. He won one Premier League title. Erling Haaland might go on to win a Premier League title, but Manchester City aren't bulletproof. I'd actually argue they look more vulnerable with that elite striker up front. So you might pay that striker. Yeah, he's scoring 50, 60 goals. If Manchester City don't win trophies, has he justified his price tag?
I think you're showing me whether Van Nistelrooy, Salah, Haaland, all these things, and all of them correctly, you show me all these isolated incidents. And you can make a case for all these outliers. You can definitely make a case for them. But overall, Larry, who wins? The team who spends the most money. We don't like that. Yes, sometimes Leicester will win a league. Sometimes Arsenal win an FA Cup, of course. But consistently, who are the successful teams? I ask you, who's the best run club in England at the moment?
It's Manchester City.
So do you want to knock Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne back to 200k a week to keep the dressing room happy?
I would argue that if those two players were offered to play for Manchester United and Manchester United were in the Sir Alex times where we were more successful, I guarantee you they take less money and play for United. I guarantee it.
Yeah, but Sir Alex, okay, that was great back 10 years ago. We're in 2023 where the money is crazy across Europe and they have been successful, Manchester City. I don't see, yes, some players will take a wage cut to play for this club or that club for certain reasons. Of course, we just had that discussion around David Gea. Every player has their own unique situation. But I cannot get my head around, I'll bring it back to Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro. They go win us a Premier League. Casemiro says, I want to extend my deal because I love it in Manchester. And they say, listen, mate, we're going to knock 100k off your week, 100k a week off your wages. That's not going to go down well. Players are selfish. Players are human. Players have families to look after. Now, yes, 200k a week will cover your family. Of course it will. But when you earn a 300k a week, if you go to work and you're earning that, and your boss says, "Look, we really want to keep you around. We have good sort of meetings. We have a good Friday night sort of pint every couple of weeks. I want when you take 100k off your wages." Are you going to say yes? No, of course you're going to say no. And I'm just thinking, we don't live in an ideal world. Ideally, I love it. I love it. It's the real world.
All right, I'm going to make one final point, and then we'll bring it to what this means for current Manchester United players. And I understand your argument. And look, I've got Emads disagreeing with me, Adams disagreeing with me. I understand that. How about this though? Let me just put a counter argument there. I think George mentioned it earlier. What if you had bonuses into contracts? So with success, you get to earn more money. If you win the Premier League, you're capped at 200k. But Marcus, if you score 30 goals that season, or if you score 20 goals that season, you get an extra $1 million or £1 million, whatever it might be. If we win the Premier League, that's an extra $1 million for everybody, or £500,000, whatever it might be. What if you put performance-based incentives into their contracts? Because you can alleviate that, have a healthy wage structure, and then you can say, if the club are winning the prize money because of your success, we're then going to give you that extra cash. And then let me ask you to follow up on that statement. I want you to imagine, again, this is idealisms. It hasn't happened yet. I want to be hopeful, though. Let's say United in the next 3 years win a Premier League title and you introduce that wage structure. Would there not be players out there who'd be willing to take that pay cut, or not even a pay cut, to take £200,000 at Manchester United? Let's assume you're an elite player. I know you're a United fan, but remove that to the side for a moment. Every player wants to win trophies. If you're a neutral player, you've got an offer from Manchester United and you've got an offer from Manchester City. Both teams have won a Premier League in the last 2 years. Both teams finished first and second in the previous season. Would you take Manchester United at 200,000, or would you take Manchester City at 250 or 300,000? I tell you what, I still think the brand of Manchester United has a name. And I think if United are competing for titles, I still think 9 out of 10 players will move to Old Trafford over the Etihad. Maybe that's just me being a bit naive as a United fan, but I still think that that's achievable.
Well, I don't know where to start. There's about 7 different questions there. I'll go with the question that stayed in my mind in regards to your initial one, and it was in terms of including bonuses into the contract, which I do like now. They're already there. To what extent they're made public, I think that's
But
up
that's
for
the
debate.
thing. We don't hear of them. I've never
But
read anything.
my point is here, Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial, you mentioned goals. If Rashford scores 30 goals, okay, you're going to get your extra million or whatever. So let's say Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford both are capped at 200K a week. That's their wage. Everyone's happy dressing room. Everyone's treated equally. Marcus Rashford, though, his agent is able to get him 1.5 million for 30 goals a season. Anthony Martial has only been able to get 750K for 30 goals a season. Is it a happy dressing room? Are they paid the same? There's going to be brown envelopes everywhere in regards to getting through this, and I just come back to the real world. I do sort of welcome a new wage structure and sort of anything that can be done to help get it under control, but under control in the right way. I don't see any club in world football. Yes, you can throw Leicester in there or Liverpool, like these isolated incidents. Well, Liverpool won title in 30 years. Leicester, this one-off title. Ultimately, the successful clubs go and spend what it needs. And Manchester United is going to have to. We've got new owners at the moment. Is this the Glazers' idea? Who's putting this in charge? Is it just John Murtough and Eric Ten Hag's idea? If the Glazers signed off on this, or the new owners going to sign off on this?
The article suggested it was Richard Arnold, Ten Hag.
Yeah. So look. I welcome the story. I welcome change in that department, no doubt. But do I believe the story? Well,
can I ask you this? And I'm going to make an argument against my own argument because I'm neutral like that. Jadon Sancho, if we believe this, £350,000 per week, have United paid over the odds for players? Is the issue actually wage structure, or is the issue actually that we have not had a David Gill or someone who understands football enough to know what the true value of a player is? Jadon Sancho, for his ability, now he was good at Dortmund. I would never have thought £350,000 would be entering the discussion. So if that wage is to be true, I would argue, is the issue the wage structure, or is the issue Ed Woodward or whoever's signing off on these deals? Because no club in the world was going to offer Jadon Sancho £350,000 per week.
We've been answering this question every day for the last decade, Larry. No, we don't pay. We don't show value for money. We know the answer to that. Clear.
So maybe
look at the Anthony deal. Anthony was worth 40 million. We bought him for 100.
So is it just that United don't necessarily need to have like a hard and fast rule on what salary a player earns? Should it perhaps just be there's a line, every player has their price, and once they start asking beyond that price, we've got a hard line that we're going to take. So, for example, if Marcus Rashford... Now, let's talk about Rashford. I think that's the most relevant, and in terms of recency, it's the most accurate. If you're Marcus Rashford, Marcus Rashford walks in to negotiate his new contract now. His agent walks in to negotiate his contract right now. How much is Marcus Rashford worth to you? And what's the price where you say that's too much for Marcus Rashford?
I think that's where you get in all Messi's situation. What's he worth for me? Do I compare it to Jadon Sancho and David De Gea and Erling Haaland, or do I compare it to what I want Manchester United to be?
But again, this is the whole debate, right? So let's assume salary cap isn't the thing. Let's say though we're taking a hard line. A player is worth at a price.
What's he paid now per week?
That price is too far.
What's he paid now per week?
According to this report, Rashford's on £200,000 per week.
I'd look at £200,000 a week again, and look, you go win us a trophy, you score a couple more goals, we'll throw a couple of bonuses on there. But I think in regards to weighing up what I see some players are on and what some players are worth, I think he's on about that. Now, yes, he's going to get a far bigger deal, and he's going to break this salary cap structure because that's the way the real world works. Like this thing doesn't have any legs; it won't stand up. And I'm not to say Marcus Rashford shouldn't get a wage increase, but ultimately, I think 200 is probably right when I compare some players potentially earning double that, but obviously maybe sometimes goal tallies do double that. You look at Erling Haaland. But I do like a lot of people mentioned in the chat, I would highly incentivize these contracts in regards to trophies, goals, appearances. And but yeah, off the top of my head, 200 sounds about right for Marcus Rashford at the moment.
I'd probably agree with you. According to this, Bruno's on 240,000 per week. I think Rashford's about there. I would say that they're probably on par in terms of their importance to United. Now, maybe some fans will look at that and say, well, Bruno doesn't have the goals and assists to back it up this season. But I still think in terms of...
They're about right. I'll be bringing Bruno back down to 2. I wouldn't be cutting his wages, but ideally he'd be back at 200.
So you think... So if we're comparing on this, Bruno and Rashford, probably comparable salaries.
Yeah. I think in regards to their contribution to the team, now, yes, how do you weigh up Rashford's goals at the moment, but it's bigger than that in regards to sort of comparing players. But I think they're about the same in their contribution to Man United.
All right. So
I do look at Casemiro coming in. I think if he wants to ask for a little bit more than that, I'm more than happy because I think he's absolutely vital.
Yeah, he's our best player comfortably, Casemiro. I want to ask you, this will be my final question to you before I look to wrap up. What is the absolute most you go for Rashford? So let's assume that, Rashford walks in. Let me ask you this then. Rashford walks in, I want £300,000 per week. Take it or leave it.
He's going to get it. So he's definitely going to get it. Yeah. 250 for me, but ultimately you are going to pay over the odds. You want to lose him at the a couple of months ago.
Would you walk away if Marcus Rashford offers £300,000 to you? He says, "I want that amount." If that doesn't happen, I walk. I go to PSG. I go play with Mbappe.
Yeah, look. Today I take it. Tomorrow morning, if he doesn't score against Charlton, or the next day if he doesn't score against Charlton, I say no. Get on the plane, go to PSG yourself. So that these things do change quickly. He shouldn't get a 100k a week increase. That should not happen. But I think off the back of his improvement and what if Erik ten Hag believes he's the future or has a future role in his team, should get an increase because I think he's deserved that in recent times or under the stewardship of Ten Hag. 100 grand a week, I don't think so, but he will get it. And that's where I think this all comes back to this story. Yes, I think there's validity behind the story in regards to sort of addressing the wage structure. But ultimately, Manchester United is a business. The players and agents are smart businessmen. They're going to come in and there's not going to be any discussion of a salary cap. If he wants 100k a week increase, he's going to get it. It's not going to be capped at 200.
All right, so you've got Luke Shaw, who's on reportedly 150,000 per week. So for me, that's his value. If I'm Manchester United, I don't go up on that.
Yeah, no, 100%. He'll get an increase though. If he goes, no one's going to go sign for the same amount of money because they can go sign somewhere else. So should he go up to 200?
Is there another club in the world that would pay Luke Shaw more than £150,000 per week? I see. With Rashford, it's interesting.
He can tell clubs. He can tell. He can go to Man United, say Chelsea are, and Man United will pay the money.
It's valid. Diogo Dalot. So let's talk about him because obviously his contract will be up for negotiation. According to this, £25,000 per week. That might actually be believable because if you think when Diogo Dalot signs for Manchester United, it's very much a sporadic player. And in fact, it took him 3 seasons before he even got a sniff into the starting 11. So I think Diogo Dalot is definitely in for a big increase. Well, Tom, you might get your wish. 25,000 or 200,000? I can't see it happening.
But that's right. I think Diogo Dalot is definitely deserving of a new contract. So if his wages that well, I talk about God, wouldn't you love to be earning that much a week? But if his contract is that, yeah, pump him up to 50, so double his wages. Now that in regards to percentages, what I mentioned earlier, that might break my structure if I'm doubling someone's wages. But in regards to restore some parity, he definitely is one of the players that does definitely deserve a bit of a boost in his pay packet.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll come to your comments. Adam, if we stay strict to the wage structure, we can say goodbye to Rashford because PSG will offer double. I think there's something in being a Manchester United fan, and I think
you're naive. I agree in essence, but ultimately no.
You say that, Tom. I think if you're Rashford now, you're eyeing off Wayne Rooney's record. I don't think he'll get there, to be honest, but I think it's achievable. If he goes on and really if he does break into that elite goal scoring record, attributes that he undoubtedly does have. He's showing it. He has to be thinking about that, and it's to cement his legacy. If he goes to PSG now, he doesn't go down as a United legend. I think now, considering the way Ten Hag's turned things around in such a small amount of time, he has to be thinking about, I can go down as a United great right now.
Oh, definitely. But you cast your mind back 6 months. He was on the bench twice, and he was flirting with PSG. So, it's one of those ones that...
He's in an awful patch of form, Rashford.
Yeah, no, of course. Look, I'm over the moon he's turned it around. And look, as I said, I do hope he goes on to become a club legend. And I think that record might be a little bit out of reach. But ultimately, if he wins a trophy at Manchester United, I think he will go very close to becoming a Manchester United legend. I'll love that. But he's a businessman. His agent knows how to get money. And I think if the money's on the table somewhere else, a player is stupid not to take it. Marcus Rashford is a brand. It's a huge brand. I'm just thinking, yes, in an ideal world, stay at Manchester United and play for nothing. That's not going to happen.
All right. Got a question from Adam. Manchester United offer you $200,000 per week and PSG offer you $400,000 per week. Where are you going? No bias. Tom, I'll give you the floor.
It's one of the ones you can't answer with any bias. So obviously, if me sitting here at the moment as a Manchester United fan, I'll jump at Manchester United for 200 grand a week. I can easily, because of what I'm earning, I can look at that 200 grand a week and the opportunity that gives me. I can take that. As a player with no allegiance, I'm going to PSG. That's it. If I grew up in Brazil and my club is Sao Paulo and I have no connection to Man United or PSG, and that's the offer, I'm going to PSG. I want to guarantee a trophy and I'm going to double my wages or get double of what I would have elsewhere. And I just think that's what, unfortunately, a lot of other players will view as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Final closing statement on this, Tom. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And do you think it'll happen?
I like addressing the issue. I like fixing the wage structure. I don't think a black and white salary cap fixes that. I think that puts handcuffs on us.
I agree with having a wage structure, but ultimately, if you have a Cristiano Ronaldo at his peak that's scoring 50, 60 goals a season and you're winning Champions League trophies, I think your sponsorship money will go up. I think the value of your club will go up. Revenue will go up. And because of that, I think you'd be naive to be stubborn about a set amount coming in every week. Ultimately, the club is there because of the players and the players are there because of the club. It's a 50-50 relationship. Manchester United are the biggest football club in the world. I don't think they should be having salary caps with regards to keeping elite talent and attracting elite talent. But we will leave it there. We'll put the beers down. Hope you've all enjoyed that debate. Tom, when it comes to negotiate your salary, mate, we'll chat. There will not be a salary cap. I promise you that. But look, I can't promise you that I'll be able to offer you a whole lot more than a large McChicken meal from McDonald's. But if you have enjoyed the video, make sure you do hit a like. And if you are new, make sure you do subscribe. We'll have the Charlton preview coming your way shortly as well. And we'll chat to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.